The president and vice president there expressing new urgency in a push for some level of U.S. control over Greenland. Vance's brief visit to the Danish territory was previously described by officials there as, quote, highly aggressive. It came just hours after Greenland formed a new coalition government in a show of unity in the face of American overtures, and hours after Vladimir Putin vowed to uphold Russian interests in the Arctic. Joining me now, Michael McFaul, former U.S. ambassador to Russia, now an MSNBC international affairs analyst. Always glad to see you. Let's get into this. Donald Trump's last phrase there, we have to have Greenland. Thinking about that, how do you interpret the messages coming from the White House? How do you think the government of Greenland is interpreting them?
Well, the government of Greenland and the people of Greenland don't like those statements. Neither does the government of Denmark. Polls show very clearly they don't want to be independent. They don't want to be part of the United States. But secondly, and I think most importantly, the president needs to explain to us why we need Greenland. Where did this come from? Why all of a sudden it's categorically his #1 foreign policy priority for international security, not even American security, that we have to take Greenland? We don't need Greenland. We have soldiers there. You just showed them. If we want to buy minerals from there, we can buy the minerals. We don't need to seize them. And I've just never heard the president or the vice president or anybody on this team explain to the American people why this is such a vital national security interest now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Did you read anything into Vance's comment that Greenlanders will choose to become independent of Denmark? Would you expect the U.S. to somehow get involved in that choice?
I hope not. We have so many real national security threats to the United States of America that we don't need to be inventing fake ones. This is doing tremendous damage to our NATO ally, Denmark. NATO has been one of the key pillars of our national security for decades. So why are we messing around with this when we have real threats in the world to deal with today?
Speaking of threats, Greenland was clear U.S. officials were not invited there. Trump and Vance both say that Greenland is under threat from China and Russia. So how do you interpret President Putin's vow to defend Russia's interests?
Well, again, I would like to see more data to support the hypothesis that Greenland is under threat from China or Russia. That's what the vice president said. I would like to know what that data is. I'd like him to make the case to the American people that that is true. Second, if it is true, we can put more soldiers there. I want to emphasize that. We have soldiers all over the world in all kinds of countries that we didn't need to annex in order to have them there. And then third, there's a real paradox here, because on the one hand, Greenland is threatened by Russia, but then on other days, President Trump and the Trump administration tell us that Putin is our friend. So you got to have it one way or the other. Either they're a threat or they're a friend. It can't be both.
I guess it depends if it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday, right? But let me ask you, what is Russia's interest in Greenland? Do you know?
Russia has an interest in the Arctic, right? They want to protect their sovereignty there. They want their mineral rights there. I think they're probably pass as the Arctic freeze up from unfreezing. There's going to be new routes for their energy there. But I've never heard yet any evidence that somehow Russia wants to take Greenland or annex Greenland. Again, we need evidence to support these hypotheses about this national security threat to the United States. And I've looked and I've studied the issue and I haven't seen any.
Let's move to Russia and Ukraine, which this week both accusing each other of violating terms of a U.S. brokered partial ceasefire. What is real and what is not real? Which side is an honest broker in that war?
Well, the honest broker is, of course, Ukraine. They were invaded by President Putin. There was no threat to them. He's annexed their territory. He's kidnapped their children. He's slaughtered their civilians. There's one side that is right and one side that is wrong in this war. Second, remember, people have seemed to have forgotten, but President Zelensky, long weeks ago by now, said he was ready for a 30-day ceasefire with no qualifications. And here we are now, weeks later, President Putin has not agreed to that. So I think you're seeing very clearly that Ukraine is sincere about negotiating the end to this war, and I don't think Putin is. Quite frankly, I think he's deliberately engaging in these negotiations to stretch them out. He wants to take more territory in Ukraine before he wants a ceasefire, and he's achieving, tragically, that objective.
And here's something, because after Putin toured the Russian submarine on Friday, he's quoted in the British press as saying he can finish off Ukraine. So are the scales today tilted more toward peace or war? It would suggest the latter.
I've seen no evidence to suggest that Putin wants to end this war anytime soon. He keeps reiterating his original demands that he set out at the beginning of the war, and he keeps doubling down on them. Remember, if you look at a Russian map today, published in Russia, 4 territories of Ukraine are part of the Russian Federation today in the map, printed, but they are not on the ground. And so until he tries to take those 4 territories, I'm very skeptical that he's going to settle for any peace agreement. And the second piece I would say to that, while he thinks he can still take territory in Ukraine, he will continue to fight. That always happens. And that's why if we were serious about trying to create permissive conditions for a lasting peace, we would be supporting Ukraine with new weapons, not disarming them now, because disarming them now only invites more aggression from Moscow.
President Zelensky also said this week that Putin, quote, will die soon, I guess due to his age. Does he know something the rest of the world doesn't?
I don't know where that came from. I think it was just his age. I think he was trying to stress he's a younger man, but that was a bit of a mystery to me where that came from.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I do want to ask you about an NBC News report confirming the Wall Street Journal report that Israel supplied intelligence discussed in that Signal group chat where Defense Secretary Hegseth disclosed attack plans and timelines. What kind of fallout do you anticipate from this whole Signal scandal?
Well, I would hope there would be more fallout from this Signal scandal. There should be consequences for these kinds of mistakes. There should be consequences for using Signal. I've flown on the Vice President's plane, the National Security Advisor's plane, and the Secretary of Defense's plane, and I can tell you they are all well equipped with very secure communication systems. So why were they on Signal in the first place? But second, to your point about Israel, I think what you're seeing, and you're already hearing hints of this, not just in Israel, but with other allies, people are wary of sharing intelligence with the United States today. And I think that is very bad for American national security.
Yeah, 100%. Michael McFaul, always good to talk with you. Thank you.